Welcome to People Like You. Have you ever experienced something in life or created a storyline in your mind and felt the need to jot it down? You just might be a writer in the making. Today's guest inspires first-time and advanced writers to pursue their gift and at the same time inspire the world, so stay with us.
The goal is always to create ministry. I wanted to bring that fellowship and that depth of relationship into the regular writing world.
Welcome back. There are many resources available to us in Northern California. Inspire Christian Writers is a great one. It is a subscription-based organization and just might be a fit for you if you have a desire to inspire through writing. Elizabeth Thompson is president and founder of this interactive organization, as well as her blog designed to help us overcome emotional obstacles. So glad you're with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So writing takes on so many forms today.
It's never been a better time to be a writer than right now. We have options available to us that the internet has made available that have never been available before. Writers can publish books. They can do it traditionally, the way it's been done for generations, or they can self-publish. That's becoming very acceptable now. They can publish through blogs, any online services.
There are so many opportunities. Yeah. Yes, and you know, we can identify writing as long form or short form.
Yes.
And so many of these other avenues are available to us for short forms, which is what I'm mostly interested in. But how can we tell if we are a writer?
Well, for me, how I knew I was a writer is that I've always loved words. I love the way the words Jane Austen wrote many, many years ago flow from the page now. I love the words. I love to listen to sportscasters and the pacing and the language that they use. I just love words. And so that was one of the ways I knew I was a writer. I tend to journal my prayers, and I always have. And that's one of the ways that I think I unravel my thoughts is by writing them out. And so I think someone who unravels their thoughts through words, maybe a writer.
So when you say you journal your prayers,
yes,
to center in on that for a moment. And,
sure.
And is that a tool that you also use then when you publish?
I don't publish my journaled prayers, but what I do is it's my time of just focusing my thoughts and bringing them to the Lord. So I write out in my journal what's going on, what I'm concerned about, what's troubling me, what's, the things that my kids are facing or my husband, and inspire even makes the prayer journal. But I write those things out, and then what I do is when I'm hitting a period of life where I'm really struggling with something, I go back to it, and I have the fuel I need to keep moving forward.
So the foundation of how He has been there for you in those moments, and you kind of remember the situation, circumstances, and see that there was a result, helps you move forward.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Talk about Inspire Writers and what kind of writers are involved with that organization.
Well, Inspire started in 1994 around my kitchen table. I went to a Christian Writers Conference and realized that these were my peeps. These are the people that
you found your
world.
I
found my home, my little family, aside from my family. And I wanted to bring that fellowship and that depth of relationship into the regular writing world. Because the regular writing world is I sit at home by myself and I write with my computer or, at my table with my notepad. And it's kind of a lonely endeavor, and I don't get a lot of encouragement or feedback. But when you go to a conference, you're surrounded by people who do the same thing. And so with Inspire, we started with small critique groups and have branched out from there.
So it is subscription based.
Yes.
But anyone can join, if you're just interested possibly in writing. You don't even know if you're a writer yet.
Correct. The only stipulation is that they do need to be a believer.
Okay, so the relationship with Christ, because
Exactly.
this is a Christian writers
Right.
organization, so you're using those tools, and you know, they're interesting topics too. I attended an event recently where I met some of the writers, and actually a book about pets
Yes.
is a book that's being published here very recently, and it's part of your group.
Yes. Just got published.
It did. And what's the name of that?
Dogspirations.
Yes.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of unique in that it was a believer who was kind of talking about a book and relationship with animals and how care, you know, and Christ,
Yes.
you know, cares for us very similar to the way we should care for an animal.
Right. They teach us a lot, those little dogs.
So tell me what you prefer to write, long or short form?
Both, actually. I write short form. I'm on Twitter. I actually host a prayer ministry on Twitter on Wednesday nights for writers throughout the world.
And I want to talk more about that as well. So
that's a blast. So I like those little short bursts of writing as well, but I am working on a book right now. Actually, I've got 2 in the hopper that I'm working on. And so I like all forms of writing. I do a lot of freelance writing, short articles and things as well.
You talked earlier about self-publishing, and that's becoming popular. Why is that?
I think it's becoming popular for a couple of reasons. One is that the publishing industry is changing dramatically. It's harder, I think, for people to break in to the traditional publishing market, and if they're a first-time writer, it's so for instance, if you have a small book idea, like a book that maybe doesn't have a reach worldwide, isn't something that, you know, this is going to impact just everybody, but this has a really good impact for a small group, it's ideal to self-publish that, because a big publisher is not going to be interested in it, first of all. If you do get one on board, you're not going to be paid much for it, but if you have a speaking platform, if you're a pastor or someone who speaks at women's ministries or those type of things, you already have a built-in platform, and that's ideal for someone who wants to self-publish.
And in addition, would you say that it might be easier to do it today than it may have been decades ago, and possibly even less expensive?
A whole lot less expensive. A whole lot less expensive.
My language.
And way easier. I mean, way easier. The things that you want to remember if you decide to self-publish is that you do want to make sure, first of all, that you're in a good critique group, so that you make sure that the message
opinions.
You get some honest feedback, because your mom loves you. She's going to tell you it's great. Your best friend
That's what my kids say, actually.
Your best friends are going to tell you it's great, but you want to have some people that can read your work and give you the feedback that you need to make it the best that it can be. Then you also want to partner with freelance editor, freelance cover designer, someone who can format the inside of the book so that when someone gets it on their Kindle, it's not going to have all these weird jumps and starts, which you probably have seen. I've seen in some
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Does Inspire Writers, do you do that?
We do.
Oh, you do?
We
And
do.
actually, Inspire Promise, we want to talk about
Yes.
this. It's kind of interesting, but people can be published
Yes.
through your organization. So more with Elizabeth when we return.
Our writers have a message. They have a heart for sharing with the lost and also encouraging believers. But the words have to get published and out there somehow.
Welcome back. We're here with Elizabeth Thompson, and I noticed on your site that you say your goal is to help inspire, people to inspire the world. No limits.
Right, right. We really want to partner with writers who have a message. They have a story that's burning inside them, or a message that they feel that God has given them that they want to get out, either in fiction or nonfiction form, that is going to impact our culture and the generation that we live in, and hopefully generations to come. We want them, our writers have a message. They have a heart for sharing with the lost and also encouraging believers with the message of hope that comes through Jesus Christ.
All right, 2 things come to me. Number 1 is, what is your first work that you created? And then did you find yourself in a position where your work maybe was not recognized? Is that part of why you are so willing to help other people?
Well, to back up to the first part of the question, yes. My very first article that I published was in 1994. It was in Focus on the Family's Citizen magazine. And it was, that was really fun because I really felt like God just gave me this article. And I wrote it, had no idea what I was doing, fired it off. They told me, oh no, we don't take, you know, submissions for this. We're writing this in-house.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Pretty much. And so, so she did call me back a couple hours later and said, you're never going to believe this, but they want you to go ahead and do it. So I did, and it was published, and that was pretty exciting. Very fun. And then as far as recognition, there are people that really thrive on recognition. I'm not really one of those. So I've gotten enough recognition for my writing, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy helping those that really need more recognition to get that.
And to possibly inspire those that haven't started, that
exactly.
perhaps they really are a writer, they have a story. Another thing might be that sometimes when you're telling your own testimony or your own story or just something that's happened in your life that's different than someone else's or actually the same, but you found an answer through it.
Right.
That's worth writing down.
Absolutely.
That's an inspirational story.
And that's what we thrive on as believers, you know, hearing how God has helped someone else overcome something that we're now facing gives us the strength and the courage to walk through.
All right, now you've got a book you're working on, and obviously you can't give us a lot of details, but come on, give us a tease.
Okay, I'll tell you a couple things. I'll give you a lot of details on the first one. Okay. I'm writing a book with Susie Flory. She's a New York Times bestseller, and I think you may have interviewed her.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She and I are writing a book together for people who are interested in starting or maintaining successful critique groups.
Nice.
The foundation of Inspire is that we have tons of small groups where writers meet weekly, monthly, whatever fits their schedule, and they receive feedback and encouragement, prayer support, emotional support, publishing industry information. And so we want to be able to duplicate that in places that, long and far away. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So, and then the second book is a totally different kind of
Totally different, yes.
Okay. Now, on the first book, this seems like that's something your groups could learn and others. And when you say, you're referencing a specific kind of critique, one that's actually going to make a difference in the outcome of the work.
The idea is twofold. One is we get a lot of writers who come to us and they're like, I'm not even sure I'm a writer. I just have this idea and I really want to pursue it and see what happens. So they come and they find out whether or not they are a writer because the group will tell them. And they always are. Oh. I mean, when God puts that on your heart, He's going to give you the skills and the ability to move it forward. And so the critique groups really are there to minister to and encourage the writers. You know, we pull those good things out of each writer.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I also noticed that, overcoming emotional obstacles to a healthy, happier life is one of your goals.
Yes, that's what I'm working on. That's my second book, is going to be around that topic, and that's what the basis of my blog is. So my personal blog.
You've come in contact with people who can use this tool to improve their own life, inspire themselves into a healthy, happier life. Did that happen to you?
I'm working on it. I'm writing it, my journey. My blog is my journey of overcoming those things. I've found that in my Christian walk, I come across Christians who are just so victorious and joy-filled and seem to have it all together, and I don't. And sometimes it's a little discouraging. I have things that I am still working through. So that's the journey that I'm on. Like, I'm taking basically some very ancient practices and learning how to apply those in a modern world, in my modern today life that's very busy, and I have a lot of demands on my time and energy. And how do I incorporate meditation, and how do I incorporate simplicity? That's the one I'm working on right now. How do I incorporate those to create a healthy, happy, holy life? What are the things that are in my head or in my life that are keeping me from that? And that's what I'm exploring through my blog and in the book that I'm writing.
And so if we could benefit from it ourselves, because you're actually raw and open about what you're dealing with and how you're getting through that through Scripture.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty exciting.
It's fun. Feels vulnerable.
Thank you for sharing that with us and for being so open and share your vulnerability. And a big secret is I think a lot of people are struggling with something even if they have this smile on their face, and sometimes even more. So being real and sharing, that's part of writing. That's part of what we do as Christians. And so to use this outlet, I think is so exciting. I did notice it is subscription, but there is an opportunity for people that are interested. They might be able to win a subscription. And then when we come back, I'd like you to talk about Inspire Promise. This is actually a book filled with short stories from writers that, that have been critiqued.
Yes.
Okay, so you know, if you're inspired to get started, grab a notepad, stay with us, and we'll talk more about this book when we return.
The goal is always to create ministry for the reader, but the words have to get published and out there somehow in order for them to impact a reader.
We're back with Elizabeth Thompson. That incidentally, you show us all these different ways of writing. For instance, you've got books that you're working on. You've written articles and stories and the blog that you're talking about. So this just shows many of the different varieties there are today that weren't available to us 2 decades ago. So now tell us about this book, and this is called Inspire Promise. It's one in the series. This is something that you do yearly.
Yes. We have an independent press we call Inspire Press that we can use to publish our writers' books if they would like to self-publish through us. This is an anthology of our writers' stories, a compilation of stories, and each year we create a new anthology. The one that we're working on currently is Inspire Forgiveness. So there's stories of forgiveness that will inspire people to be more forgiving or to accept forgiveness when it's offered to them. This one is Inspire Promise, and it has some really amazing stories of promises that God has made to us and kept in our lives that I just find it very encouraging. So what we do is the writers submit their stories to our team. The team compiles them, votes on them, decides which ones will come into the book, which the majority of them do. And then we have a kind of an annual yearbook that shows what our writers are doing.
All right, so first of all, they need to be a member.
Correct.
And actually, I did notice on your website there's opportunity for people to possibly win a year's subscription.
Yes, if they mention KTLN in a comment, in one of the blog comments, we will enter their name in a drawing for a free year's membership.
So KTLN, even if they feel they're not a writer, if they just enter the term KTLN
in the comments, they can come and try it out for a year for free.
That's fantastic.
And get plugged into our critique groups and participate in all the blessings of being a member. So.
All right, and then I really enjoyed going to the site. There are a lot of tools already available without being a member at just the initial stage. But what I'm understanding with this is that anyone who is a member can submit a writing. And when you say book, it can be long form, it can be short form, article length, it can be, because I see some of these are smaller.
This is for our anthology. So all of these have to be under 1,500 words.
All right.
So I believe there's 30 some stories in this book.
And it also looks like there can be humor.
Yes.
And there's areas that are serious. This one, for so many years I allowed the opinions of others to form my thoughts and guide my direction, only to find associates are momentary, even the bonds that I thought would last a lifetime. And I reference that because I'm also reading about Giggles over here, Emma's dancing socks, giggling and you know, with a yellow satin dress and an orange bow. So it paints a picture that way, and a story that someone felt really, you know, led to write. And in this case, it kind of goes back to what we were speaking about before. Those words mean something to the author, who is Rebecca.
Right.
But can also mean something to the reader who's experienced that situation in their life, and they see it in writing. Someone else has been there too. I'm not alone.
Right.
So I love what you do, that you publish this book that not only benefits the author in the critique, but also the reader.
The goal is always to create ministry for the reader. And that ministry can't happen until the reader either opens the page, reads the tweet, text, blog post, whatever. But the words have to get published and out there somehow in order for them to impact a reader. And so this is just one of the tools that we use to get those stories out where they can hopefully bring encouragement and hope.
That's pretty exciting.
It is fun.
How do
It's really
we
fun.
get involved with Inspire Writers, Christian writers?
Well, if you're interested in coming, you can come to any of our critique groups and meet initially without having to join if you're interested. And so you just go on our website, it's inspirewriters.com, and you click on the tab that says groups, and David Hyde will connect you to a critique group. You can go and visit 2 or 3 times before making up your mind if that's for you or not. And then if it is, you just join. You can join online, and it's a $50 annual fee. It's not very much. And with that comes a lot of benefits, including the critique groups, opportunities to publish through our anthology, opportunities to self-publish an entire book through Inspire Press if you're interested in that. And you can also come to our conferences and workshops at a discount or free. Our workshops are free.
All right, we only have a minute, but in the critique group, I can imagine that those are pretty wonderful groups.
They
Your
are.
book and work is critiqued, but you're also sharing a lot of valuable information and inspiration. Is that true?
Very true. In fact, one of the things that happens in the critique groups is that those groups form very, very strong bonds, because usually the things that you're writing are from the deep places of your heart. And so when you're exposing those to other people in a very vulnerable way, because it's not just, hey, I want you to read this and see if you get anything out of it. It's like, read this and tell me what you really think.
Right.
And so it's very vulnerable, and you feel very exposed. But there's so much grace and so much love that goes into these groups that you come away feeling good about what you've written.
Yeah.
And you also come back knowing whether or not your writing makes sense and what needs to be done to improve it.
Thank you for being with us and for starting this organization. To find out more about today's topic, go to inspirewriters.com, elizabethmthompson.com, or ktln.tv. People like you pick up a pen and inspire others. What about you? Remember that KTLN is a donor-supported ministry, and programs like this one are made possible through your support. Join us again next week.